Okay, just three quick things to wrap up this shapes and layers part of the series. The first thing I want to say to you is that if you were to run this project now, I'd run it on the iPad simulator again, and loads up fine. You got your blue and your green scene, and they go in and they change colors, and everything is fantastic. So we close that down. If you look at the actual program here, we've got monkey.pod with a capital M, and inside in the green scene we've got monkey.pod with a small m. And if you were to take this out now and plug it into your iPhone, you probably would find that that would cause a problem, that you'd get something up in your console here saying it can't find monkey, capital M monkey.pod, or something like that. The thing to be careful of is that when you're doing projects and you're working on it all the time, there's a backup being made inside in Xcode with its derived data, and you'll find that it's a bit the referencing is a bit looser than it possibly would be on a device. And in fact, if you were working on a device constantly and you kept putting in the same thing and you had slight changes in your pod like that, you might find that it would work on the device because that's got a backup derived data folder or whatever. But just to be careful, watch out for that sort of thing. And if it doesn't run immediately, that's probably what the issue is. The second thing I want to say about it is that that all runs very fine on an iPad, but let's say we put it on an iPhone 3.5 inch simulator, and actually we'll shut that down there and run it, and you'll see that now we're kind of all over the place. The positioning of the layers and scenes isn't very good. So that's more of a kind of a Cocos 2d issue, but I just decided to say something about it so that you should start thinking about it. I put in, let's see, in my main layer, all we had done originally was just taking a piece out of the original template app delegate, and that was handy for just sticking the layers and scenes in somewhere where we could see them. But really, you should be kind of thinking more in terms of percentages, so that for the different devices when you're making a universal app, you have thought out where it should fit kind of percentage wise in the screen. So what I've done here is just change it around a little bit to say that we get the minimum side length fine, but instead we make it 40% of its size multiplied by 0.4, and then when we're positioning it, we take the full size of the window or the content, and we take off the content size of the new smaller layer screen, and then I position that halfway up the window, and then halfway along the window, and then on this one again, full height, take away the height of the half the height of the content screen, and we position it a little bit up the window. And then in the test layer, I've done the same thing, but in the test layer, I'll just get rid of that guy and that guy and put them in. And the test layer, we do pretty much the same thing, but just make it 40% of the size. And in this case, you can leave it in the X position because the test layer is going to sit inside in the main layer in the center. But I put it as minus the content size to shove it down. And if we run that now, you should see that it is more in proportion with the device it's on. That's supposed to be an iPhone Retina. Other things you can see, obviously, you're going to have to take care of the size of the font, and whether you're going to be using a Retina display or not. Let's see, just show you if you switched off Retina display in this. That's up, and we're in a Cocos 2d one, so there's a Retina there. It says yes. We'll make it no and run the program. No, not that no. A big no. Then we'll run it again, and now you'll see that because there's no retina, the back sprites are at their full size, so they're kind of taking over again. So these are all the sort of things that you have to be thinking about when you're putting together a any sort of a Cocos 2D or 3D program. It's the same thinking. Okay, that's that part of it. And the final thing I want to say to you is, okay, what we've been working with is basically you go into the app delegate, you set up your control layer, you stick a CC3 layer onto it, and then you launch it, and then in the CC3 layer, which is the main layer, you can either stick in, it can hold a scene, or it can hold another layer which will have a scene in it. Every CC3 layer can only hold the one scene at a time, and they can be swapped out. It can hold many of the any of the CC3 layers, and they can all have their own scene. If you're an absolute total control freak and you want to from the very start uh, be, you know, oh, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but you want to start it from a control layer. I've put together this quick project called Fancy Shapes, and in this I'll show you in the app delegate. Instead of launching with a CC3 layer attached to a control layer, all I've done is gone into the application did finish launching. Started the setup code here for this Cocos3d, and all we're launching here with is a controllable layer, and we call it base control layer, add it to the scene, and then launch the scene. So the first thing that runs in this is just a controllable layer, and that's called the base controller, and that can run pretty much as a CC, any CC layer. It can run its own actions, it can add labels, and the one thing it can't do is have its own scene property. So you would start this as maybe your base control layer, then you would add other CC3 layers onto it because they need a controllable layer, and each of those layers could then have its own scene. So what you might have is the base control layer. What I've done here is I've got the base control layer, I've got a section of in the project of the intro level is called, and that's an intro layer and an intro scene, and then you got the first level, which would be a first layer and a first scene. And in the controllable layer, what I'm doing is I'm saying this takes care of everything. It adds its own label, which is the main control layer, and then it runs an action where it loads its intro layer, has that there for 4 seconds, then it unloads its intro layer, and then there's a 2-second delay, and then it loads its first layer. So this is how you might set up a thing where you'd have different levels in your game, and you want to have one layer for the first level, another layer for the second level, and underneath it all you have a base control layer that runs the whole shop. And the methods are pretty straightforward. They just add the layer, take away the layer, and add the layer. And if you look at the intro layer, that's pretty much what we've been doing already. So adding its own scene, it has its own label for the intro layer, and then in the first layer we have its own scene, which is the first scene and the first level layer, label. And then down on the intro scene it's just the monkey again with red, and in the first scene it's the monkey again with blue. So if we run that, what you have is the controller layer launches, that's its label, it puts in its first intro level layer and shows it, has a delay, and then launches another layer with its own scene. Okay, and that would be the structure of a big game that would have bunches of layers and scenes, and they'd swap in and out as required. Okay, I think I've battered layers and scenes to death now at this stage. Hope you've got a good handle on them. For a basic, just starting, and you can do a fairly complicated program with it, all you need is a CC3 layer to launch various scenes, and you can control the scenes from that CC3 layer. Okay, next thing we'll be moving on to, I hope, is materials, lights, and all that sort of thing. Okay, good luck.